Hey, how's it going, everybody? Lepidoptera here once again with another deck profile. I was not expecting to do any more pre-standard, but I had a couple more decks that I kind of took interest in and finished up this one. This was going to be like the last one of pre-standard, but hey, you know what? Some stuff comes up and then you invest money you don't have in cards. Anyway, yeah, this is my machining build. I really didn't know what to expect from the new support, especially because it was really oddly different from what we had before. I don't know, I was kind of weirded out with how well this build, how well new machining did compared to its counterpart, where it was so clunky and just kind of odd to play with. So, I don't know. Anyway, let's jump right into it. So, machining is the lesser of the two options with Mega Colony. Well, I guess that would be Giraffa, so it's like in the middle, you know, redhead stepchild, like middle area. It has one thing that sets it apart from Gridora, though, and it's that it focuses more on Vanguard paralyzing than anything else. Though, with how fast the game is now, with how much people draw, it becomes less and less relevant. So, you know, I still find myself using some of the same plays. Let's jump into it. So, your starting Vanguard is going to be Machining Bagworm. He is just kind of the same thing as Little B with a bit of an extra pizzazz to him. What he does is you can rest him. If your opponent has any resting units, you can rest that unit, and if not, you can just soul charge one. It's neat, and then you can also throw him into the soul to restand a resting machining unit. It's about where his usefulness comes from. You can just restand one of your resting units. The deck does a lot of that already, so he's just kind of there to rest anything that isn't, you know, that should be resting when it isn't. You know, people will throw things in front of the Vanguard. A lot of decks will, like, toss the starter off to the side and spend the first few turns doing that, you know, doing just Vanguard attacks while the starter's off here standing, and that kind of helps out with that a little bit, especially because your grade 2 turn is really super aggressive if you have the right hand. So, and a lot of the power boosts and effects are cut off when there's a standing unit, so, you know, it's kind of what he's there for. For grade 3s, we have 4 of the new guy, Machining Beat Atlas, which is a terrible, terrible name. I don't know why they couldn't have just, why it couldn't have just been Atlas Beetle like it was originally. He's a really, really solid grade 3 for the deck. Obviously the main one. On stride, you can counterblast 1, call 2 machining units from the soul at rest. I wish the stride would gain power. That would be neat, but no. And then he has a GB2 ability that during the end of the turn, you can take 2 machining units from the hand or field, put them into the soul. If 2 are put into the soul, you can countercharge 1 and draw 1. Really interesting card. I like the extra draw at the end of the turn. I like the fact that he goes off for free, kind of like Gridora does. He's just a really solid card. I love him a lot. His art's amazing. His ability is consistent, so I don't have to sit there and like re-ride constantly, like back in the days when we ran when our main card was a Stag Beetle. So you know, he's been a very welcomed gift to machining, and I look forward to how machining is going to be in standard, honestly. Yeah, I saw that Spark Hercules and Stag Beetle where we're getting V-Series reprints, and we're going to be, you know, the starting cards and the new, you know, the new standard Mega Colony, so really interesting. Speaking of which, we also run 2 Machining Stag Beetle as a small alternative. You don't want to ride this at all. Like, please don't. This is literally just a best of a bad situation card. It's happened before, and, you know, it isn't a huge detriment, but it isn't a huge plus either, so, you know, try to avoid that. For grade 2s, we have what should actually be 4 Red Soldier, but I'm doing 2 Red Soldier, 2 Mantis. I just like this guy because whenever you ride on top of him, he can become a 12k Vanguard on his own, which, given the right circumstance, it can make him passable over like a grade 1 Vanguard. I really just ran this as like a small tech. You're free to run 4 Red Soldier. I would actually recommend that more than anything. This is just more or less like a small, like, nostalgic personal preference, because again, I've been playing this deck since like literally we just had, you know, Stag Beetle, and then like that was it. You'd ride Stag Beetle, call things at rest, have like no way of restanding them. Like this is like pre-stride machining, and that was kind of what I had to roll with before. And so this is more like a little nostalgia option for me. Yeah, if you don't know what this guy does, on ride or on call, he gains 3k if you have a machining in the soul, right? Yeah, just want to make sure I got that right. He is a prime example of a card that's good to just suck back into the soul and call back out again and repeatedly do that. So, you know, he doesn't lose 12k, it's just more of a juggling option. We then have, I'm actually going to go to that one second here. Now the main grade 2 of the deck, the main MVP of the deck, which is 4 Machining Mosquito Mark II. This is your main dude. If your opponent has no standing units, he gains 2k and the ability to on-hit paralyze one of your Vanguard or one of your opponent's units, rearguard units, and restand one of your own. So you can juggle 2 of these, though it's not going to happen a lot. It's just on-hit pressure. You can stack criticals onto like one of your other rearguards, throw this out there, have him be like, you know, twice as much of a threat now because the unit that can restand is potentially, you know, a bigger threat. So yeah, I've really enjoyed using this guy over the years. He's been really solid. But now he has a little buddy in the 4 Machining Princess. This card is so good. You can rest her to have a unit gain 3k, right? And it seems like this just generic ability. But then you can counterblast 1, have her restand. Whenever you do this, she gains the ability that once per turn, when she attacks, you can restand one of your own units. So back to that again, if you get crits or get triggers, you can put them onto a rearguard. And then that rearguard suddenly becomes a little more threatening because now this can restand them. I like that she's just a, like, cut and clear, this card does restand one of your units. You know, it isn't like has to hit or there's like a certain cost has to be met. It's just stand, counterblast 1, stand her, choose a unit, and that unit can stand, you know, after she attacks. I love it. A lot of aggressive plays that come out of this. I do admittedly win a lot of my games because of this, and it's just such a solid card. I'm in love with how they decided to make Machining Mosquito's, you know, partner in crime be something that does kind of what he does, but a bit better. For grade 1s, I run 3 Machining Cricket. This is just for an easy paralyze. We don't use this a lot. Really what this is for later plays where you have Machining Despot and you're able to restand more options. It doesn't come up a ton, but then again, there aren't really a ton of great grade 1 options for machining. So I was debating on taking this out for 3 Black Soldier, but I don't know. Then again, like when I've ran Black Soldier in the past, it didn't like make up for anything really. It was just kind of there. So I don't know. I like this card a lot, though. If you don't know what it does, it's rest it and then paralyze a unit. So, or rearguard unit. I keep saying unit, and it alludes to the fact that it might be the Vanguard. Yeah, rest this, paralyze a rearguard. Run 2 Machining Mosquito, on call or on ride soul charge. It just builds up the soul and builds up your options. 2 Caucasus. This is an older card. We're on boost. If the attack hits, paralyze a unit. Again, just a little bit on hit pressure. We then run 4 Machining Leafy. This is your new stride fodder. And I want to make sure I get this right, too, because I always went up forgetting. Yeah, so on whenever you discard it for a stride fodder, Soul Blast 1, and you can... go away. Soul Blast 1, and you can paralyze a rearguard. It's a cute little skill. You don't use it a lot, but it's there for, you know... the lulls. I don't even know. I really don't use it a lot. It's really just a machining unit. It just has a machining name. That's about it. We then run 4 Machining Tardigrade. This is your new Perfect Guard. It's just once you're done Perfect Guarding Soul Charge 1, it just builds up the soul. You're free to run the new one if you'd like. I just don't like having a lot of non-machining units in the deck, or any at all, really. I feel like it can clog sometimes because like some of the counterblasts need to be machining. So, you know, you're free to run this if you'd like. For triggers, I bounce back and forth with the trigger lineup a lot. There's a lot of different things you can do. I decided to go with the good old-fashioned 6 crits, or I mean 6 draws, excuse me, and 6 crits. So, right off the bat, 4 of the Tree Hopper is just a mandatory must. It's recyclable, it paralyzes things. Towards the end of the game, you can refill your deck with them. It's just an amazing card. Firefly, you don't really use him a lot. He just restands one of your rear guards and paralyzes one of your opponents. I don't use him a lot, or at all, really. He's just kind of there because he's a machining crit. With the 6 draws, though, your resources do get depleted really fast, and even if you can suck them back up into the soul, your opponent, with any amount of brain power, is going to go straight for the mosquitoes, going to go straight for the princesses. I mean, they're going to heavily try to deplete your resources, and with something like this, especially if you are running into the issue of like riding into like a scarab and you don't have the ability to suck everything back into the soul, the 6 draws have just really helped out a lot. And I used to go with 8 and 4, but you know, I've settled on the 6. You know, the 6 and 6. It's been a lot better for me, but I do still tinker around with that. So if you are planning on building the deck yourself, by all means, try to tinker around with it a little bit. Maybe see if stands are working out for you. I haven't tried those out yet, but yeah, it's been. I've been happy with this, but there's definitely days where I think like, oh, maybe I should run more crit still. Maybe I should go with stands. You know, it's all up in the air. And then of course we have the 4 heals, because, you know, heals. And onto the extra deck. We have 4 Machining Despots. This is your new stride. Really interesting card. Counterblast 1, flip a G unit. For every machining unit that you have face up in the G zone, you choose one of your rear guards and stand it. Your opponent then chooses 2 of their units, so Vanguard is on the table at this point. 2 of their units for every 1 unit you stood and paralyzes them. So this has the option of paralyzing the Vanguard, but that's kind of the thing, is that it has the option of doing it. It doesn't really do it. So I don't go for this first stride. In fact, I still make a lot of Overwhelm plays, and that's kind of why I don't play this deck a ton compared to Gridora. Like, if I had to choose between the 2, I would still go with Gridora, because this isn't as fast or handy as I would like it to be, because if they have anything other than their Vanguard and starter on the field, it's just going to paralyze those 2. And then those are easy throwaways. So I don't really go for that a lot, but you want to reach GB2 because you want to get off Despot's skill, not Despot, you want to get off Atlas Beat's skill, and so it just becomes like this issue where I can't use Destroyer first turn because I want to get the skill off, and speaking of which, we do run 3 Machining Destroyer. You know, Counterblast 1, if you have 4 or more machining rear guards, Counterblast 1, paralyze a rear guard, and then if you have 4 or more machining rear guards, you can paralyze the Vanguard. Very cut and clean, very simple. I want to run 4 of this, I just didn't have the room for it. Everything else kind of had priority over it. We do still run 2 Overwhelm because it's the best stride we have. It's super solid. There's really not a bad time to go for it. It's aggressive. It adds stuff to your hand. I'm in love with the card. It's amazing. We have 1 Obtyrannus because Obtyrannus is super solid. 1 Zoa because after a long game of paralyzing the Vanguard and restanding units, who doesn't like to have a little Zoa action? For G guards, we have 1 Relish Lady, 1 Grisefort, and then the 3 Morphosian, which is the exact same as my last build. I really wouldn't divvy this up anyway. The 3 of these are super useful. The Grisefort cuts off a lot of decks, like Aquaforce, for example. Gets to run resist, things like that. And Relish Lady is a really solid card to go for if you have to stack G guards, because her ability to force your opponent to rest, or not force them, but force them to choose between, you know, are you going to make me rest, or are you going to let me add resources to my hand and counter charge and soul charge. Like, it's just a really solid card. So I really wouldn't, you know, this G Guardian lineup, like, you know, I probably seems boring that I run the same between 2 decks, but it's just really good. You know, and especially with, I guess more on to Despot, because Despot, you know, I don't want to give the impression he's a bad card either. It's just, first stride Despot is never a good idea, in my opinion, unless it's going to paralyze a Vanguard. But first stride Destroyer also isn't a great idea because you aren't going to get off Atlas Beat's skill. So you kind of run into this situation where it's like, well, what do I go for? And then I always wind up going for Overwhelm because Overwhelm is such a good card. So then we're back to playing exactly like we played Gridora again. And it just, for some reason, it's never gone differently for me. So I don't know. It's maybe a fault of me as the player, but you know, Despot is definitely a later game card. I was actually debating on running only 3 of this and taking one of either taking this out for 4th Destroyer or taking one of these out for the GB8, because the GB8 is also an option in this deck and it's a really good one. So I don't know. The jury's still kind of out on that. I love Despot to death. He's a really solid addition to this deck, but there are definitely days where it's like, do I really need 4 of him? So we'll see what happens. And that's the deck profile. Hope you guys enjoyed. Ignore the bird. So I am debating on doing a new Batama deck profile. I have the deck mostly finished. I just haven't gotten around to actually patching up everything. That, and then I have one more special deck profile. It's going to be very off the wall, very random. Not something that I actually was planning on doing. Oops, dropped my cards. Not something that I was actually planning on doing a deck profile on, just because of how strange the deck profile is. But I've really fallen in love with it. So, my God, I can't pick a deck box up. Jesus. Here we go. So, yeah, I don't know. The deck profile is going to be a little strange, so we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time.